Slope-intercept form just describes a type of equation set up in a specific way. But first, let's go ahead and define the words that we see in slope-intercept form. So first, we can define slope. Slope, like we've said before in our past notes, slope is rise over run. That vertical change over the horizontal change. When we're looking at a graph, we do rise over run. The change in y, the change in the y values over the change in the x values. And our formula for finding slope between 2 points we said was y2 minus y1, because that's our change in y, the difference in y, over x2 minus x1. That's slope. That should be a review of what we've already been talking about. Now, intercept. Well, let's go ahead and remind ourselves that slope is written. It is always written as a fraction whole number or improper fraction. Right on the room there. We always write slope as a fraction, an improper fraction, or a whole number. That does not change now. And we still have to simplify it. Intercept. What do we think intercept means? I believe we had a question in our bell work about this not too long ago. Intercept. When something intercepts something, what does that mean? When two things meet. So, when a line crosses another line, the lines intercept. Here we're talking about when our lines intercept an axis. So intercept, the point where the graph of a line crosses an axis. An intercept, the point where the graph of a line crosses an axis. And for this specific formula, for slope-intercept form, we are always going to be talking about the y-intercept. What do we think y-intercept is? Where the line crosses the y-axis specifically. Because an intercept can be crosses either axis, but we, for this formula, only care about where the line crosses the y-axis. Which axis is the y-axis? The vertical axis. Y-intercept, where the line crosses the y-axis. the vertical axis. Oh, I grabbed the wrong color there. Okay, you ready for our formula? Slope intercept form. The formula for slope intercept form is y equals m times x plus b. Y equals m times x plus b. In this formula, m, the variable m, represents our slope. The slope of the line is represented as m. If m is slope, what do we think b is? Which intercept?
Y.
The y-intercept. B is the y intercept. Let's practice identifying slope and intercept from a couple equations. Y equals 2x plus 9. We're going to identify our m, which is our slope, and our b value, our y-intercept. Looking at this, y equals 2x plus 9, y equals 2x plus 9. I'm looking at our formula, which is m, 2. M is 2. Our slope is positive 2. What's our y-intercept? What's our b value? 9.
Wait a second. Did Miss Warshaw say the other day that slope was a fraction? Or what else?
A whole number.
A whole number. But if you were going to graph that, could you make it a fraction?
2 of 1.
Can 2 also become a fraction?
Yes.
Okay, just check.
Try another one. Y equals 8/3 x minus 2. Identify your slope, identify your y-intercept. M, what's our slope? 8/3. What's our y-intercept? Where does this line cross the y-axis? -2. Good catch.
Is the m equals the first number?
Yeah, the number being multiplied by x, m times x, the number touching x is going to be your m value slope. If it's being added to, if it's your constant value, it's a y-intercept. Slope is the coefficient, y-intercept is your constant. What if I have an equation that looks like this? Y equals 3.
5 is 3.
There's nothing being multiplied by x.
So it's B.
X isn't even there. What can I multiply by x? to make x go away? 0 times x is 0, and we wouldn't write 0 plus 3, right? So what's our slope? What's our m value? What's our y-intercept? What has 0 slope? What type of line? What type of line has a slope of 0? Horizontal line. So this particular line is a horizontal line that crosses the y-axis at 0, 3. What about x equals 7? So, x equals 7. What type of line do we think this is?
Vertical.
A vertical line. It has an undefined slope. Our slope is undefined. And there is no y-intercept. It is a vertical line. So now let's talk about writing an equation for a line in slope-intercept form from a graph. Looking at the graph, what are our steps? We're going to have 3 steps. Step number 1 is going to be identify the slope of the line. Which is what we've been doing, right? We know how to identify slope of a line. It's rise over run. Next step, we're going to identify the y-intercept. Identify the y-intercept, where the line crosses the y-axis. Third step, substitute into formula. Substitute the values that you just found, the slope and the y-intercept. Substitute those values into formula. Y equals mx plus b. Your y and x will stay y and x. The m and the b will become numbers. Y and x will stay variables. M and b will become numbers. These are steps. First, identify slope of the line. 2, identify the y-intercept. And 3, substitute into the formula. Let's practice this. Identify slope of the line, rise over run. Identify the y-intercept. And 3, substitute those values into the formula. Y equals mx plus b. Here we go. First step, identify the slope of the line. So find your dots. Find where that line crosses perfectly in a corner. And count your rise over run. Goes up 1, 2, 5 is our rise. And it goes to the right 2. That's my slope. That's my m value. It is a positive slope. And we leave it as 5 over 2, that improper fraction. Where does this line cross the y-axis? Remember, the y-axis is our vertical axis. It's labeled on most graphs right here. Y-axis. At -1. The line crosses the y-axis at -1. So what's our formula? Y equals 5 halves x plus -1, or what can we write to simplify that? -1. There you go, you just wrote an equation for a line. This is called slope-intercept form. Number 2, what kind of line do we have? Horizontal line. If you look back here, what did our equation look like when we had a horizontal line? Just y equals a number, right? When we have a horizontal line, y equals the y-intercept. So what's our y-intercept here? So our equation is y equals -3. Oh, that's obvious. Because this line crosses the y-axis at -3. Okay, number 3, let's find our points to calculate our slope.
6.
We're going to go down here, up here, up 2. Our rise is 2, we go up 2, and then to the right 1, 2, 3. Rise over run. Our slope is 2/3. What's your y-intercept? Where does that line cross the y-axis? This is my y-axis, this is my line. It crosses at -2. So our equation is y equals 2/3 x minus 2. Number 4. First step, identify your slope. So find those dots, find those places where it crosses the corners perfectly so you can count your slope. We want slope and y-intercept. Slope is rise over run. I'm rising 1, 2, 3. Going over 1, but I'm going left 1, so it's a -1. Do I leave my fraction like this? No, I simplify it to -3. Where's my y-intercept? Where my line crosses this y-axis right here at +2. So my equation is y equals -3x plus 2. Oh, we have a vertical line. What do our notes say about vertical lines? Vertical lines, what does our equation look like for a vertical line? it's going to be x equals a number, and that number is going to be where the line crosses the x-axis. So where my vertical line crosses this x-axis at 2. So the equational line is just x equals 2. Because if you think about it, it doesn't matter what y is. No matter what my y value is, if I say y equals -4, x is going to equal 2. If y is positive 2, x is going to equal 2, no matter what. So y doesn't even need to be involved in this, because no matter what, x is going to equal 2.